On a distant planet called Verida, the sky was a deep shade of purple, and the ground was covered in bright green plants. Once this place was full of life and happiness. The Veridans, a proud alien race with green skin and large, gentle eyes, lived in beautiful cities. They thrived under the care of their powerful allies, the Krathari, who had helped them for many years. But now everything had changed. The Krathari had abandoned the Veridans, leaving them to face danger alone. Without their friends, the Veridans were in deep trouble. Food was scarce, and wild creatures roamed the land, attacking anyone they could find. The once vibrant cities were now empty and silent. Zella, a brave young Veridan, looked out from her hiding place in the ruins of her home. She felt a heavy sadness in her heart as she remembered the laughter and joy that used to fill her world. Now only fear remained. Meanwhile, far away in space, a human exploration team was on a mission to discover new worlds. Captain Mia Ramirez, a determined and skilled leader, guided her team aboard their spaceship, the Star Voyager. They traveled through the galaxy, eager to find new planets and learn about different civilizations. One day, they picked up strange signals coming from Verida. "What do you think it is?" asked Jake, the ship's navigator, as he analyzed the readings. "I'm not sure, but it could be a sign of life," Captain Ramirez replied. Her curiosity piqued. "Let's check it out." The crew prepared for landing, excitement buzzing in the air. As they descended, they saw the beautiful but eerie landscape of Verida. The vibrant colors were still visible, but the silence felt heavy, as if the planet was holding its breath. When they landed, the crew stepped out, ready to explore. They wore special suits to protect them from any unknown dangers. As they walked through the overgrown paths, they noticed the strange silence. "Where is everyone?" whispered Sarah, a member of the science team. Suddenly, they heard a rustling noise coming from the bushes. The crew quickly turned their attention to the sound, their hearts racing. Out from the foliage came Zella, her green skin blending into the surroundings. She was cautious but curious, her large eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. "Who are you?" Zella asked, her voice trembling slightly. The humans took a step back, surprised by her sudden appearance. "We are humans from the planet Earth," Captain Ramirez replied, trying to calm her. "We mean you no harm. We came to explore." Zella felt a glimmer of hope. "Please, you must help us. My people are in danger. The Krathari left us and we are struggling to survive. We are attacked by wild creatures every day." Captain Ramirez could see the pain in Zella's eyes. "What happened to your people?" she asked gently. Zella explained how the Krathari had abandoned them, taking away their protection and leaving them to fend for themselves. She spoke of the hardships her people faced, how many were lost to the wild creatures and how they had to hide in the shadows. The humans listened intently, their hearts heavy with compassion. Captain Ramirez felt a strong urge to help. "We cannot leave you like this," she said firmly. "We will do everything we can to help you and your people." Zella's eyes widened in disbelief. "You would help us? Why? No one else has." "Because it's the right thing to do," Captain Ramirez replied. "We are explorers, and we cannot turn our backs on those in need." With renewed hope, Zella led the humans to her hiding place, a small village on the outskirts of the main city. As they walked, Zella pointed out the ruins of what used to be a thriving community. The humans were shocked by the devastation. When they arrived, the Veridans watched curiously from a distance, unsure of the newcomers. Zella introduced the humans, and slowly the Veridans began to step forward, their eyes filled with cautious hope. "We are here to help," Captain Ramirez announced. "Together we can find a way to drive away the wild creatures and bring back life to this planet." The Veridans exchanged glances, unsure but willing to trust this new ally. As the sun set behind the purple mountains, a feeling of unity began to blossom. For the first time in a long while, hope flickered in their hearts, lighting the way to a brighter future. Zella led Captain Ramirez and her crew through the ruined village. The Veridans hiding in the shadows were thin and tired, their faces full of fear. They hadn't seen help in years, and the sight of these strange new humans filled them with both hope and doubt. Zella introduced the humans, explaining how they had landed on Verida and offered their assistance. As Captain Ramirez looked around at the broken homes and sad faces, she couldn't ignore the growing determination in her heart. "We can't just leave these people," she thought to herself. "They need us." The humans sat in a small circle with Zella and a few of the other Veridans. They spoke in quiet voices, discussing what had happened since the Krathari left. It all started 3 years ago, Zella explained. One day, the Krathari just left. No warning, no explanation. They took their weapons, their ships, everything. We were defenseless against the wild creatures, and soon our cities fell. Captain Ramirez listened carefully, her face serious. Why would the Krathari abandon you? Weren't they your allies? Zella nodded sadly. We thought they were. But when we needed them most, they disappeared. Now, we don't know how much longer we can survive. Sarah, the science officer, leaned in. What do you need the most? Food? Medicine? Zella looked around at her people. We need safety. The wild creatures attack us every night. They've destroyed our homes, and many of us are too weak to fight back. Captain Ramirez stood up, her mind made up. Then we'll help you defend your village. We can use our technology to build barriers and weapons. Together, we'll protect you from these creatures. Zella's eyes widened in surprise. You would really do that for us? But why? No one else has cared enough to help. Captain Ramirez smiled softly. Because it's the right thing to do. Humanity believes in helping those in need, no matter how far they are from home. The Veridans exchanged glances, their hopes slowly returning. They had been alone for so long that the idea of someone helping them felt like a dream. But Captain Ramirez's words were firm, and the humans were already planning how to help. Jake, the ship's navigator, was busy drawing a map of the village, marking the weak spots where they could build defenses. If we set up a perimeter here and here, he pointed to 2 areas. We can keep the creatures from getting inside the village. Sarah nodded in agreement. We have some equipment on the ship that can help with food supplies, too. We can use it to grow crops faster and provide medicine for the sick. The crew quickly set to work, gathering tools from their ship and organizing the Veridans to help. Zella watched in awe as the humans moved with purpose, showing no fear of the danger ahead. It was the first time in years that she had felt hope. As the sun began to set, the humans and Veridans worked together to build strong barriers around the village. They used materials from the spaceship and what little they could salvage from the ruined homes. The Veridans, though weak, were eager to help. Together, they constructed walls and set up traps to protect the village from the night's attacks. That evening, Captain Ramirez gathered the Veridans around a small fire. Tonight we stand together, she said firmly. No matter what comes, we will fight to protect your home. You are not alone anymore. The Veridans listened in silence, their eyes reflecting the flames. Slowly, they began to feel a sense of unity. The humans had promised to help, and for the first time, they believed it might be possible to rebuild their world. As night fell, the distant howls of the wild creatures echoed through the trees. The Veridans tensed, but Captain Ramirez stood tall. Get ready, she ordered. We're going to show these creatures that this village is no longer theirs to terrorize. With the humans' advanced technology and the Veridans' determination, they waited for the attack. When the first wave of creatures appeared, they were met with strong defenses and coordinated strikes. The wild creatures had never seen such resistance from the Veridans before and soon retreated into the darkness. As the village quieted down, Zella looked up at Captain Ramirez, her heart full of gratitude. You kept your promise, she whispered. You really did help us. Captain Ramirez smiled, her face glowing in the firelight. This is only the beginning, she replied. We're going to make sure you and your people survive. Together we can rebuild your world. The Veridans began to believe that for the first time in years, they had a chance to survive. And it was all thanks to the humans who had promised not to leave them behind. The next few days on Verida were filled with hard work and hope. The humans and Veridans worked side by side, rebuilding the village's defenses, treating the sick, and growing fresh food. Zella and her people were amazed at how quickly things were changing. The village was coming back to life, and for the first time in years, they felt safe. Captain Ramirez and her crew helped train the Veridans in basic combat skills. They taught them how to use simple weapons and traps to defend themselves. Though the Veridans had once been a peaceful race, they now understood that they needed to fight for their survival. One evening, as the sun set behind the Purple Mountains, Jake, the ship's navigator, sat alone outside the village, scanning the horizon with his binoculars. He had a strange feeling in his gut, like something was wrong. The wild creatures had been quieter than usual the past few nights, and it made him uneasy. Anything out there? Sarah asked as she approached Jake, noticing his serious expression. Not yet, Jake replied, lowering the binoculars. But something doesn't feel right. It's too quiet. Sarah frowned. You think they're planning something? Jake nodded. I don't know, but we need to be prepared. The creatures are smart. They've been watching us. As they spoke, Zella appeared, looking concerned. I've been feeling the same, she said. The creatures usually attack every night, but it's been quiet for 2 nights now. It's like they're waiting for something. Captain Ramirez joined them, hearing the conversation. Then we need to stay alert, she said firmly. Double the patrols tonight. Make sure everyone is ready for anything. That night, the village was tense. The humans and Veridans kept watch from the barricades, their eyes scanning the dark forest that surrounded them. The sound of the wind rustling through the trees was the only noise they could hear. Hours passed, and the night seemed calm. But then suddenly, the ground began to shake. The noise was faint at first, but it grew louder with each passing second. The wild creatures were coming, and this time, it wasn't just a small group. From the darkness, the first wave of creatures appeared. They were larger than before, with sharp claws and glowing red eyes. Their roars echoed through the forest, sending chills down the spines of everyone in the village. "They're here!" someone shouted. Captain Ramirez grabbed her weapon and rushed to the barricades. "Hold the line!" she commanded. "Don't let them through!" The humans and Veridans fought together, launching arrows and energy blasts at the incoming creatures. The traps they had set up worked well, taking down many of the beasts, but the creatures kept coming. Their numbers seemed endless. Zella fought bravely alongside her people. She used the combat skills she had learned from the humans, striking down the creatures with determination. But even she could see that this attack was unlike any they had faced before. "We can't hold them off much longer," Jake shouted as he fired his blaster at a creature that had broken through the barricade. Captain Ramirez quickly assessed the situation. The creatures were relentless, and it was clear that they were testing the village's defenses, looking for weak spots. "We need to fall back to the center of the village," she yelled. "We can regroup there." The humans and Veridans retreated, forming a tight circle in the middle of the village. The creatures surrounded them, growling and clawing at the walls they had built. Just when things seemed hopeless, a loud explosion shook the ground. A massive creature, larger than any they had seen before, emerged from the forest. Its body was covered in thick armor, and its roar was deafening. The wild creatures seemed to follow its lead, as if it was their leader. Captain Ramirez's heart raced. "We've never seen anything like that before," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Zella's eyes widened in fear. "That's the beast that destroyed our cities," she said, her voice trembling. "It's the one that made the Krathari leave. We don't stand a chance against it." The situation was dire. The beast was too powerful, and the village's defenses were weakening. The humans and Veridans fought bravely, but they knew they couldn't last much longer. As the giant beast roared and charged toward them, Captain Ramirez made a quick decision. "We need to regroup at the spaceship. It's our only chance." The humans and Veridans began to fall back, retreating toward the Star Voyager. The battle wasn't over yet, but they needed to find a way to defeat the beast before it was too late. They had come so far, and they couldn't give up now. As they made their way to the ship, the looming threat of the giant beast hung over them. Danger was approaching, but Captain Ramirez knew they had to find a way to fight back and protect the Veridans. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of their toughest battle yet. The humans and Veridans hurried to the Star Voyager, their hearts pounding. Behind them, the giant beast roared, shaking the ground with every step it took. The wild creatures followed closely, eager to finish what they had started. Captain Ramirez and her crew knew they had little time to come up with a plan. As soon as they reached the ship, Captain Ramirez called for an emergency meeting in the main control room. Zella and the other Veridan leaders joined them, looking anxious but ready to help. "We don't have much time," Ramirez began, pacing back and forth. "That giant beast is too powerful for our defenses. We can't defeat it with just brute force." Jake, the navigator, studied a map of the village and the surrounding forest. "The beast is smart," he said. "It's been testing our defenses, looking for weaknesses. If we don't find a way to outsmart it, it will destroy everything." Sarah, the science officer, stepped forward. "We need to work together," she said, her voice calm but determined. "The Veridans know this planet better than we do. Zella, is there anything here we can use to our advantage? Something the beast is afraid of, or a place where we can trap it?" Zella thought for a moment, then nodded. "There is one place," she said slowly. "The old caves to the north. They are deep and narrow. If we can lure the beast inside, it will get stuck. Jake raised an eyebrow. That could work, but how do we get the beast to follow us into the caves? Captain Ramirez crossed her arms, thinking hard. We'll need to make it believe we're retreating. If we can lead it to the caves and block the entrance behind it, we might trap it long enough to figure out how to take it down. Zella looked uncertain. The caves are dangerous. Many Veridans have gotten lost in them. We would need a clear plan. We don't have much choice, Ramirez said firmly. It's either that or let the village be destroyed. The room fell silent as everyone realized the weight of the situation. Then, one by one, they nodded in agreement. It was a risky plan, but it was their best shot. Within minutes, the humans and Veridans sprang into action. Jake stayed behind on the Star Voyager, working on a backup plan in case the cave strategy failed. Sarah and Zella led a group to gather supplies for the mission. They needed strong ropes, explosives, and anything else that could help seal the cave once the beast was inside. Meanwhile, Captain Ramirez organized a team to distract the beast and lure it toward the caves. The humans armed themselves with blasters, while the Veridans prepared their own traps, using sharp sticks and nets made from vines. Though they were different species, they worked together as if they had been allies for years. As night fell, the plan was set in motion. The beast and its army of wild creatures were already at the village's edge, preparing for another attack. Captain Ramirez and her team took their positions near the barricades, ready to act. "Stay calm," Ramirez whispered to her team. "Wait until the beast gets close, then fall back slowly. We need it to think we're retreating." The ground trembled as the beast approached, its glowing red eyes focused on the humans and Veridans standing in its path. It let out a deafening roar, and the wild creatures charged forward. But instead of fighting, Ramirez's team started to retreat, moving back toward the caves just as planned. The beast followed, stomping through the forest, crashing through trees. It seemed to believe it was winning, its hunger for destruction driving it forward. The wild creatures trailed behind, but they were smaller and slower, easily distracted by the traps the Veridans had set. Captain Ramirez led the beast toward the caves, glancing over her shoulder every few seconds. "Almost there," she muttered under her breath. "Just a little further." At last, they reached the entrance to the caves. The giant beast hesitated for a moment, sniffing the air, as if sensing danger. But before it could turn back, Zella and her group launched an explosion that echoed through the night. It startled the beast, pushing it forward into the cave's narrow opening. "Now!" Ramirez shouted. The Veridans rushed to block the entrance, throwing ropes over the cave's mouth and detonating small charges to collapse the rocks. The beast roared in fury as it realized it had been trapped, its massive body wedged into the narrow space. For the first time in days, the village was quiet. Captain Ramirez, panting from the effort, looked around at her team. "We did it," she said, relief flooding her voice. "We trapped it." Zella smiled, her eyes shining with gratitude. "We couldn't have done this without you," she said. "Together, we finally stopped the monster." But Captain Ramirez knew this victory was only temporary. The beast was trapped, but it wasn't defeated. They still needed a way to destroy it for good before it could escape. "Let's not celebrate just yet," she said, wiping sweat from her brow. "The real fight is just beginning." The cave rumbled as the trapped beast roared inside, its massive body thrashing against the rock walls. The sound echoed through the night, sending shivers down the spines of everyone in the village. Though they had trapped it, the danger wasn't over. The creature was too powerful to stay locked away forever. Captain Ramirez stood at the entrance of the cave, her mind racing with ideas. Zella, Jake, Sarah, and the other Veridans gathered around her, waiting for the plan. Everyone knew they had to destroy the beast before it could break free. "We don't have much time," Captain Ramirez said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "The cave won't hold the beast for long. We need to hit it hard, and we need to do it fast." Jake, who had been scanning the cave with a device, spoke up. "The beast is strong, but it's not invincible. If we target the right spot, we might be able to take it down for good." "What's the weak spot?" Zella asked, her eyes filled with hope. Jake pointed to his scanner. "Its chest. There's a vulnerable area near its heart. If we can hit it there with a powerful enough blast, it should be enough to kill it." Sarah frowned. "But how do we get close enough to hit its heart? The cave is too dangerous to go inside." Captain Ramirez thought for a moment, then turned to Zella. "Do you have any old mining explosives? Anything that can create a big enough blast to collapse the entire cave?" Zella nodded. "We have some left from the old days when we used to mine in the mountains. They're strong enough to bring down the cave and anything inside it." Captain Ramirez's plan quickly took shape. They would place the explosives inside the cave near the beast. The blast would collapse the cave on top of the creature, crushing it and ending the threat for good. But someone would have to go inside to place the explosives. "I'll go," Jake volunteered, stepping forward. "I've got experience with explosives, and I know how to handle myself in dangerous situations." Ramirez looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "Be careful, Jake. You'll only have one shot at this." The team quickly gathered the explosives, and Jake prepared to enter the cave. The others watched with bated breath as he slowly made his way inside, careful not to make too much noise. The beast's roars echoed through the narrow passages, but it seemed distracted, still trying to free itself. Jake reached the heart of the cave, where the creature's massive form was wedged between the rocks. Its glowing red eyes glared at him, but it couldn't move. With steady hands, Jake placed the explosives near the beast's chest, right where its heart was vulnerable. As he set the timer on the explosives, he whispered under his breath, "This better work." Jake quickly retreated from the cave, sprinting toward the entrance as the timer ticked down. "Get back!" he shouted to the others. "It's going to blow!" Everyone scrambled for cover, diving behind rocks and trees as the explosion rocked the ground. The sound was deafening, and a massive cloud of dust and debris shot into the air as the cave collapsed. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. The beast's roars had stopped. The wild creatures that had been following it scattered into the forest, terrified of the explosion. Captain Ramirez cautiously approached the cave entrance, her heart pounding. The once mighty cave was now a pile of rubble, and there was no sign of the beast. It was over. "We did it," Zella said softly, her voice filled with disbelief. "The beast is gone." Jake, covered in dust but smiling, emerged from behind a rock. "That was close," he said with a chuckle, "but I think we got it." The Veridans cheered, their voices filled with joy and relief. For the first time in years, they were free from the terror that had haunted their planet. The humans had come to their rescue, and together they had achieved the impossible. Captain Ramirez gathered her team and addressed the Veridans. "We fought hard and we fought together. This wasn't just a victory for us, it was a victory for all of you. You're no longer alone." Zella stepped forward, her eyes shining with gratitude. "We will never forget what you've done for us. You've given us hope when we had none." As the sun began to rise over the horizon, the humans and Veridans stood together, watching the light break through the clouds. They had faced the worst danger imaginable, but by working as one, they had triumphed. The Veridan people would rebuild, stronger and more united than ever, and the humans, knowing they had made a difference, prepared to leave Verida, knowing they had left behind not just allies, but friends. For the Veridans, this was the beginning of a new era. And for Captain Ramirez and her crew, it was a reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or power. It was its ability to stand together, even in the face of overwhelming odds.